To some, a home is a place to relax, spend time with the family, and make memories. Whether it is playing with the children, meeting new family members, or simply feeling safe and warm from the outside world, a home is a place of refuge for many. But what if you had no home? No place to feel safe? No place from the outside elements or danger? While it is difficult to compile an exact number of the homeless currently reside in St. Clair County, it is safe to say that the numbers could be in the hundreds with little relief in sight. With the efforts of the Housing and Support Services Workgroup of the Community Service Coordinating Body of St. Clair County and other local agencies, efforts are underway to highlight the issue while coming up with solutions. Oftentimes, the stereotype of someone homeless is a drug user, alcoholic, gambler, or other form of self-abusive individual. But what we know now is that these stereotypes could not be further from the truth in many cases.
I was in a domestic violence relationship in Detroit with my youngest daughter's father, and that situation, I generally ran to that situation because I was homeless. And I said, okay, well, my daughter's father said, well, you can stay here with me. You two can stay here with me. And it became abusive while I was there. And I said, well, this, plus the house was in such disarray that it was a CPS incident waiting to happen. I said, you know what? One morning I woke up and I said, I gotta do something because I don't want my daughter in this situation. And I ran to the neighborhood school. She didn't go to the school, but ran to the neighborhood school, said, hey, I need help. I'm in a domestic violence situation. And I believe the agency is called Southwest Solutions. I was transported there by the school police, me and my daughter, and they found us a shelter here in Port Huron. First, it was myself and my now 10-year-old daughter. It was a very nice domestic violence shelter because I myself have dealt with homelessness through my life since a child. My parents were on drugs, addicted to drugs, and we lost our first home before I ended up living with family members. The shelter here, it was really nice. It was a women and children's shelter, and I got to know the staff, and we had chores, that type of deal, which they prepare you to live once you do get housing of your own. And they helped us get housing, and the rest of my family moved, my spouse and our 3 children. And we've been here now since 2019.
Originated from Marine City. In 1984, I had my own body shop, Steve's Custom Collision. It caught on fire. It burnt down. My insurance company wouldn't pay to reestablish, and which caused me to lose my home that was in Elginak. So I ended up becoming homeless. I was driving my car. I got in a bad auto accident, and I spent 2.5 years in Detroit Medical Center. I was comatose, came out, went to rehab, lived with my mother at her house for a short period of time. Mom passes away. Siblings, brother and sister, didn't want nothing to do with taking care of younger brother. So I ended up moving on, lived in a porta potty for a while, got picked up, brought up to a homeless shelter here in Port Huron. Lived there for a prior time, then you have to leave. So I was living the streets. I had nowhere to go. Slept in the woods, slept in the park, slept where I could go. I was called on for trying to commit suicide and took me up to the hospital on 3 West. Spent 3-4 days there, and then a lady named Betty appeared and asked me if I was homeless, and I said, yeah. She goes, well, I got a place you can come and stay for 90 days, and we can help you out, try to get you a job, get you a home, work with you, and you'll have a place to live and 3 good meals, and see if you It's like I can get a life back. I'm kind of up on age. I mean, I might not look like it, but I'm 60. It's a couple of years from retiring, really. And just to have 4 walls and a bed, my own kitchen, to me, that's one of the best things.
I was adopted when I was 6 months old, and I was loved by my parents. We lived out in the country. We had a small farm. It was like an experience for me to go into the city and go to school. And I went and met a lady. I was 15, she was 27. Yeah, and so I married her too, and then, I was a kid with 3 kids, and then I went into the blinds business. But that's where I got hit by a forklift truck. We were unloading semis, and we were unloading in them one day, and somebody wasn't paying attention, and they just run over me with a forklift truck from behind, and it messed up my legs really badly. And I was employed. I wasn't like working a side job. And workman's comp, I always thought their function was to rehabilitate you and put you back to work. But 4 months into it, when they started talking about surgeries, the check stopped, the lawyers were called, and, it just turned to poop, Well, within a year, I lasted about a year, but that was my first time homeless. It took me a long time to heal up, but eventually I did. And then I started getting Social Security disability, but it's very little, amount of money. I wasn't used to, managing that little of amount and then having to pay rent. And it was, mostly my fault. I was homeless probably like 6 times here in Port Huron, or maybe more. I can manage it now. Somewhat. I got my retirement because I turned 62, so I got that to give me a little bit of extra money. I haven't developed friendships too much in Port Huron. I was an employee at the soup kitchen, and I was an employee at Port of Hopes. And, a lot of the people, you can't be friends with, one, because you work there. You're not supposed to have outside relationships. And people at like the Port of Hopes and soup kitchen, they're always talking about Blue Water Community Action Agency. Oh, that's just crap. It takes 1.5 years, to get a house, even if you're going to get one. Ann Sherlink referred me to Roxanne Coleman, and Roxanne filled out so much paperwork. With her help and all this stuff she had me do, and directions, and paperwork like that thick, man. She's sitting behind the desk. We spent hours, just me answering questions. And I got approved for the permanent supportive housing. And she never told me how much, they were going to pay, and then how much I had to pay. And I think my first payment was like $94 or something. I got a beautiful place. It's got wood floors, it's got high ceilings. If somebody really wants to get out of homelessness, you just have to do what's necessary. The resources are available. Blue Water Community Action Agency is just great. I've got a lot of little hobbies, going on, and life is good.
It all started when a tree fell on our house. 70-mile-per-hour wind, 70 or 80-foot tree, and it had been cracking for a long time, and we tried fixing it ourselves. And of course, it cracked above where we fixed. And when 70 mile, it went on my house. I had people go up and check for us, and they said, oh, you only got 1 hole. Then it turned out I eventually had 18 holes. And any time it would rain, I'd have to, at one time I did 28 times, and it got to where I despised rain. You even had it while you're sitting on your toilet. Look, look, look. I had one, if I wouldn't have looked up, she would have tore my head off. But I could hear them up there fighting all the time. And the police had to come and tase it and get it out, or she'd come back. and I only could fill it with plastic bags. And you could see him walking on the plastic bags. So bad I can't sleep without a light on. I gotta have a light on to see the ceiling. I have to. 8 years we lived that way. We had no water, no heat. I had a refrigerator that mice lived in, and I opened the door and I seen 2 of them giving birth to babies. So we used our spare room that was so cold to keep food, but it didn't keep. Nobody would help us. Had to go bathroom in bags because we didn't have water. I don't know if you've ever changed the bag after you go bathroom, but I don't care how much you check it, it still leaks. And when you don't have water to clean yourself, it's disgusting. And I ended up selling the house, and I got little or nothing, and I used that to live at a motel. Once I sold the house, which was August 6th of last year, he was in a nursing home, and I was the one with 3 cats living in a car. Even they hated it. I don't know, having cat litter and they go bathroom, it's really nice to have that in your car. But we end up being in the car 3 or 4 different times. You could just have the car running so long, you have to turn it off, on. You eventually mess your car up, and every part of you aches, and below zero, blowing winds, drifting snow, freezing rain. I got a bunch of paperwork, and I filled it all out, and I sent it in, and I got a phone call from a very sweet person. She worked with me through everything, and I told her at the time I had 3 cats, and she said, I don't know about that. I'll see, I'll try, and went from there. I eventually had to get rid of 2 cats, and I got 1 now. And she was sweet enough to let me keep the 1. Sounds silly, but at first I played with the toilet just to see it go down. To take a shower here, I didn't want it to end. Being here, and thanks to Aaron, it's touched me so much that, I mean, for the first days we were here, all I did was cry. I didn't think this would ever happen. I thought we'd end up dying in our car from the cold, and to be able to turn the heat on when you want and turn the air conditioning, it's just, she doesn't even realize, I can't express it in words how touched. I mean, I didn't think it would happen.
Typical youth. Matter of fact, I was working in Motor City Casino because my former life I used to be a cook, making good money and stuff, and somehow, it started out with just drinking and alcohol and partying, and then you know how you get caught up in the street life, what I can say, and you start doing more partying, and then it stopped being recreational. It started becoming a lifestyle. I was living out of my van in the streets, and I was using my van to scrap metal and stuff. And that was my wake-up call there. One day, I was riding around in my van with these fake plates, the paper plates you buy, and the police stopped me. I was going to a scrapyard, and I got all this scrap money, metal in the car, and it looked like a whole bunch of stuff because all the stuff I owned was in the van too. So he pulled me out. He took a picture. I'm finna go to jail, but he said, I said, you know what? I could take you to jail. I said, man, I'm finna go to treatment. I promise you, you ain't gonna see me no more. And he said, if I could see you again, I'm gonna take you to jail. And that was my, that wasn't the first wake-up call, because I had other wake-up calls already. You know how you want to stop, but you don't know how to stop. So I had been homeless. I've been, been in institutions. So the last thing I had left was death. I didn't want to go back to Detroit because that's where all my issues was at. So they told me about Port Huron. They had 3-quarter houses. And I went up there to visit, and I saw over there by the houses, they was under the Blue Water Bridge, and that site was so beautiful, the water was calming. I said, oh, I love this place, I'm going to come up here. I decided to go to treatment, and I ended up going to Sacred Heart, you know. And it got to that point where if they had told me to look at a wall for 8 hours, I would have did it, because that's how much I wanted to, you know, change for the way I was living. So after leaving Sacred Heart, I met a lady named Marsha. She owned a 3-quarter house. But I was staying there, and what happened was she took me on consignment that, you know, when I get a job, I would be able to pay her. But so happened when I got up here, couldn't find a job. So, you know, instead of me having to owe them money, they told me, you know, I went and checked out the shelter that was across the street, and they told me they had a spot for me, and I went there, you know, went to stay over there. They had life skill classes and stuff, and I met this lady named Julie and Vonda and Andy, and I had told them before, you know, I was going to school before to be an architect. Well, you having trouble finding a job, why don't you go back to school? Because she said, well, some things, you know, if anything, you can live off your you know, your student loans or whatever, and you know. So I took their advice, went back to school. Through the program there, I ended up getting a housing choice voucher. It's like Section 8, but it's for the homeless. And I mean, it started there where my life started changing. You know, when I started going back to school, I was in NA. I followed direction when they was telling me. And when I decided to go back to school, that's what made me decide to go back into human services, because when I got here, all these different agencies was, you know, trying to help me. And I remember when I was younger, when our house caught on fire, how the Red Cross came, and, you know, so, you know, that was like a sign to me, like, you know what, I want to give back what somebody had freely gave to me. And so that's the reason why I went back into human services. Just knowing that you're giving somebody hope, you know, that's changing somebody's life. You know, even if it's just making somebody smile, you can change somebody's day. And, you know, that makes you, that's God's work. And I love doing God's work, you know, changing somebody's life for the better.
There are just as many stories of how someone can become homeless as there are the homeless individuals themselves. But the question that needs to be asked is not why are they homeless, but how can they be helped? The individuals you have seen today are just a few of those who have worked with community programs to regain their stability as well as their pride. And while they found help, there are still many more who need assistance. With the hard work of groups such as the Housing and Support Services Workgroup of the Community Services Coordinating Body of St. Clair County, help is being given and questions are being answered. But one group cannot do it alone. But you can be part of the solution by simply reaching out to any of the organizations mentioned in this film, becoming an instrument of change. Thank you for watching.